At the far end of the long mahogany table, Ethan raised his voice just enough to be heard over the string quartet. He announced his intention to file for divorce, and the music faltered into silence. The first response was not a word, but the sharp crack of a palm against his cheek. It was his mother, Monica, her face a mask of cold fury. She hissed that some things were not for public spectacle, certainly not in front of Caleb's family. The force of the blow sent a ringing through Ethan's ears. Caleb was there in an instant, a steadying hand on his back to keep him from stumbling into the elaborate dessert table. Ethan flinched away from the touch as if it were a brand, a reaction that did not go unnoticed. The expressions around the table soured. His father, Daniel, rushed to his side, his hand light on Ethan's shoulder. He asked softly if this was about their recent pressure to start a family, assuring him there was still time. Ethan pulled away sharply, his eyes, when he finally looked up, were bloodshot and raw. He simply told him to stop. Sensing a deeper crisis, Caleb moved to take Ethan's hand, intending to lead him away from the prying eyes. He offered a quick apology to the elders, explaining it away as a simple spat. But Ethan stood rooted to the spot, refusing to be moved. Caleb's parents tried to smooth over the awkwardness, remarking on how spirited their son-in-law was, even after all these years. Monica raised her wine glass, exchanging a knowing look with Caleb's father, remarking that children could be foolish. The sentiment was returned with assurances that after 6 years, they considered Ethan their own son. The words were unbearable. Ethan shoved Caleb away again with a surprising force that sent them both off balance. As he fell, his hand instinctively grabbed for the nearest object, a sleek, modernist sculpture on a pedestal. The base, not properly secured, gave way. It shattered on the marble floor with a deafening crash. For a moment, everyone was stunned into silence. Ethan sat amidst the glittering fragments, looking dazed. His father hurried to help him up, while Caleb knelt beside him, his voice tight with concern as he scanned for injuries. He asked if Ethan was hurt, his tone a mixture of fear and frustration. Ethan simply offered a bitter smile and pushed himself to his feet. He looked directly at Monica, his voice trembling but clear. He asked where the ivy was, the one that used to be in that spot. The question was the final spark. Monica's composure snapped. She accused him of being mad, of returning home after a long absence only to cause chaos over a divorce and a worthless plant. She demanded to know if he had any respect left for them. Ethan held his ground, his question unchanging. He only wanted to know what happened to the ivy that had been in that corner. Daniel tried to intervene, to calm his wife with a quiet word and a soothing scent, reminding her of their promise to be gentle. After a long, tense moment, Monica took a steadying breath and sneered. It died. She had thrown it out, pot and all, into the trash where it belonged. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out for a moment. He finally managed to say that they knew it was the only thing his grandmother had left him. Caleb spoke softly, promising he would find it, that he would bring it back and replant it for him. He released his own calming pheromones, a scent of cedar and pine that usually, despite their differences, would have elicited a faint, complementary fragrance of meadow grass from Ethan. But this time there was nothing. Caleb's brow furrowed in confusion. He looked at Ethan, a strange unease settling in his features. Ethan saw the look. He stated plainly that it was strange. Wasn't it? Caleb asked what was wrong, a sense of dread rising within him, an instinct that something was about to shatter far more completely than the sculpture. His premonition was correct. Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was a medical report. He informed them that he had undergone a secondary differentiation. He was a beta now. His compatibility with Caleb was 0. He met the stunned gazes of his family, feeling a calm he hadn't experienced in years. He then repeated his question, his voice devoid of emotion. Now, could they discuss the divorce? Later, in the suffocating quiet of the study, Monica sat pinching the bridge of her nose. She had already been admonished by Daniel and was now making a strained attempt at civility. Ethan clutched a cup of tea, trying to draw warmth from the near-empty porcelain. He explained that the symptoms began 6 months ago and the change had completed recently. Caleb shot to his feet, his disbelief warring with hurt. He questioned why Ethan had never said anything about something so monumental. Ethan looked at him, his expression unreadable. He reminded Caleb that for the past 6 years, his only goal had been to end their marriage. Had Caleb not avoided the issue, had he come home even once in the last 6 months, he would have found an Omega suffering through a guided differentiation alone, clawing at his own glands in a desperate, painful fever until they were nothing but dry, useless knots of tissue. But Caleb had missed it all. Caleb turned away, breathing deeply before facing him again. His eyes filled with a profound sadness. He countered that Ethan had also known he was trying to save their marriage. He begged to know what he had done wrong, why Ethan insisted on skipping straight to the end without any attempt at communication. Daniel and Caleb's mother added their voices, urging them to talk, suggesting it was all a misunderstanding. When Ethan didn't respond immediately, Monica's fragile peace shattered. She demanded he speak, to justify his desire to ruin their family. Ethan flinched at her tone, biting his lip hard. He said it was because they were wrong from the start, because he never wanted to marry. Monica moved so fast no one could react. Another slap, harder this time. Her hand trembled as she pointed at him, her momentary regret quickly masked by righteous fury. She listed all the reasons he should be grateful. The 96% compatibility match, their shared childhood, the years of affection from Caleb's parents. She accused him of being heartless, of turning against his own family now that he thought he was independent. He tried to smile, but it was a pained, tragic expression. Then, to everyone's shock, he slapped her back. The sound was soft, almost pathetic in the large room. Monica stared, incredulous that he would dare. Daniel rushed forward, grabbing her hands while scolding Ethan. Ethan asked her if it hurt. He answered for her that it didn't, because he was now a beta with a fraction of her alpha strength. He explained that she could never understand the humiliation of being publicly struck by someone so much more powerful. That was why she could call him ungrateful. He looked at his mother, his voice breaking. He stated that she had never once asked if he was willing, if he was happy, if he was in pain. Fearing she might hurt Daniel, Monica stood rigid, her eyes blazing with fury. She demanded to know if he thought parents could be wrong, if he couldn't comprehend they were acting in his best interest. Ethan gave a hollow laugh. For his own good, they had changed his university major application to horticulture, a subject he detested. For his own good, on his 20th birthday, they had pulled him from his own party and taken him to City Hall to sign a marriage license. Caleb's parents exchanged an uneasy glance. His mother-in-law gently touched his arm, asking if, in all these years, he had truly never felt their love. He stepped back, shaking his head. It wasn't the same. Tears he hadn't realized were forming began to trace paths down his cheeks. He wiped them away messily. He acknowledged that they had been kind to him, but it couldn't erase the hurt he suffered at home. It was like patching a crumbling wall with stolen bricks. It didn't fix the foundation. Seeing his resolve, Monica's anger resurfaced. She called for security. If he wouldn't listen to reason, he could reflect on his actions in confinement. Caleb, who had been standing between Ethan and Monica since the second slap, now moved to shield him completely. He insisted they couldn't lock him up, that Ethan was afraid of the dark. He pleaded for everyone to calm down, promising he would take Ethan home and talk things through. Ethan looked at the security guards, men in dark suits with earpieces whose faces he had known since childhood. They were professionals trained to follow orders without question. They had never opened the door for him before, no matter how he had pleaded from the darkness of the storeroom. He took a staggering step, then another, and broke into a run, heading for the top floor. Caleb shouted his name, begging him to stop, but the sound only spurred him on. He scrambled up the narrow stairs to the attic, the guards in close pursuit. He burst out onto the rooftop, just as he had as a child to retrieve a hidden toy. The shingles were slick from an earlier rain. He gripped a decorative pillar and hauled himself onto the peak. The cheap, defective doll he had once hidden up here had been found and torn apart by his mother. It was just like him. No matter how far he ran, they always caught up. He held up a jagged piece of ceramic from the shattered sculpture. He warned them to stay back. When they hesitated, he dragged the sharp edge across his forearm. A bright line of red welled up instantly, shockingly vivid against his pale skin. Below, on the balcony, Daniel let out a cry of anguish. Monica, her face pale with shock, ordered the guards to stand down. They retreated back to the balcony. Caleb was frantic. Ignoring his parents' protests, he climbed onto the roof, stopping a few feet away from Ethan. He instinctively started to release his pheromones before remembering, the realization bringing a fresh wave of pain to his eyes. His voice was raw as he offered his handkerchief, telling Ethan he knew he didn't want to see him, but the wound could get infected. He reminded him of his love for painting, how an injury could affect his work. Ethan ignored the offer, backing away toward the edge of the roof. He pulled a silk tie from his pocket and clumsily knotted it around his bleeding arm. He asked Caleb if he knew, from the very beginning, that he didn't like him. Caleb nodded, his voice barely a whisper. He did. Then why? Why had he agreed to marry him? Caleb's eyes were red, his fists clenched at his sides. Because he loved him. He confessed his naive hope that marriage would give him the chance to win Ethan's affection. He had never imagined the depth of Ethan's revulsion, an aversion so strong it overrode the biological pull of their sense. His voice shook as he admitted his mistake, that he never should have forced him into a life with someone he didn't love. Ethan laughed, a sound that tasted of tears. He told Caleb to go downstairs and sign the papers. After a long, internal battle, Caleb finally surrendered. He agreed. He promised that everyone would witness it if Ethan would just come down. Looking down at his family, his face pale from blood loss, Ethan's voice was hoarse. He asked why they had to push him to this point. Monica, her eyes filled with a genuine, painful confusion, asked if they had truly been so bad to him. She listed the privileges he'd had, the perfect life they had planned for him. She couldn't understand why he would use this to threaten them. He smiled sadly, a fresh wave of tears spilling over. He held up the blood-soaked tie. He said it was supposed to be a gift for his father. He reminded his father of a time in his childhood when he had ruined one of his ties. And his father had told him not to worry, that one day he would grow up and buy him many more. He then asked why, when he grew up, they took away his chance to earn a living, forcing him into a useless major so he could be a homemaker. His life since presenting as an Omega had been a series of subtractions. They had changed his university application after the deadline. They had converted his art studio into a music room so he would have more in common with Caleb. They had demanded he answer their calls on the first ring. They had arranged his life, even sending a resignation letter to his job without his knowledge to clear his schedule for pregnancy preparations. He had endured it all without a word of protest. He had tried to be what they wanted. He asked if that wasn't enough. He had always thought he hated them, but with every look, a fragile hope bloomed, only to be instantly crushed. Someone once told him it wasn't hate, but a love that was too painful to bear. Caleb's voice was a choked whisper. He told Ethan not to cry. He wanted to move forward, to hold him, but he remained frozen, afraid of making things worse. Ethan clutched the ceramic shard tighter. His voice was firm. He no longer loved them, so he would no longer accommodate them. He watched his parents flinch. He was 26 years old. He hated tomatoes and fish, no matter how much they insisted it was good for him. He hated sweets. He hated music because he was tone deaf. He hated Caleb, his lifelong rival. And most of all, he hated the idea of children. The thought of childbirth terrified him. A heavy drop of water hit his hand. He looked up. The sky had grown dark. The moon was a fuzzy blur. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then he heard Caleb's desperate shout as he lunged forward, and the horrified screams from the balcony below. He felt himself falling. His descent was broken by the greenhouse they had built for him. The old glass and rusted iron frame gave way, blossoming into a cage of shattered hope. The surgery was a success, but the prognosis was grim. Outside his hospital room, the doctor explained to Caleb and his parents that while the bones and nerves in his right arm had been reconnected, there was no guarantee he would regain full sensation or avoid chronic joint issues. When Caleb, his voice strained, mentioned that Ethan was an artist and needed his arm, Monica and Daniel seemed to age before his eyes. The greenhouse, their gift, had become the instrument of his ruin. The doctor added that the patient's recovery would depend heavily on his will to live. Without a desire to move forward, a person could become stranded in their past. The specialist from the differentiation clinic arrived early. After examining Ethan's atrophied glands and reviewing his reports, he turned on the family, his voice sharp with accusation. He demanded to know how they could have let his glands burn out completely. It was Ethan who answered from the bed, his voice a dry rasp, saying he hadn't told them. The doctor called him a fool, explaining that if he had used a single dose of suppressant during the fever, it could have killed him. Ethan said he knew. He had thrown away all his suppressants and locked himself in the house. He confessed that he never felt like an omega anyway. He had survived the fever, and he had no regrets about becoming a beta. The psychologist arrived then, a kind-faced woman who greeted the other doctor before taking the chart. She turned to Ethan and asked his name. When he didn't answer, Monica supplied it. "Ethan," she said. "It means precious gem." The psychologist smiled gently and held out a hand to Monica, interrupting her. She needed to hear it from him. She asked the family to wait outside. Caleb was the last to leave, his eyes full of unspoken questions. He seemed to already know the answer. He hesitated at the door and softly tried a different name. "Ian?" Ethan lifted his head and met his gaze, his expression clear and direct. For a moment, he looked like the boy Caleb had grown up with. A vital support seemed to crumble within Caleb, and he fled the room. The psychologist turned back to the bed. "What would you like me to call you?" she asked again. After a long pause, he spoke. "My name is Ian, as in the wild goose that flies south." He added quietly, "It was my grandmother's name for me." Later, in a sterile conference room, the doctors delivered their findings. The differentiation specialist explained that Ian's omega physiology, his pheromones, his receptors, was completely gone. He was on an island, and only he could heal himself now. The psychologist was more direct. She told them that Ian did not lack a will to live. He lacked the will to live as the person they had made him. Her preliminary diagnosis was post-differentiation depression and gender identity dissonance. He did not, on a psychological level, identify as an omega. He believed his first differentiation had been a mistake, and this second one was a correction. He would not answer to the name Ethan. He insisted he was Ian. She looked at the parents and asked a simple, devastating question. How did you let it get to this point? Monica, cornered and ashamed, lashed out. She called it an act, a performance. She insisted they had given him everything. Was it wrong to want a secure future for him? The psychologist didn't argue. She simply said that the only way for him to truly heal was for them to let him go. In the heavy silence after the doctors left, Daniel, his eyes red, turned to his wife. He asked if Ian had already known his name when they changed it. Monica scoffed, a hollow, defeated sound. He had been born when the family business was in crisis. Daniel and Monica had left him with his grandmother, who named him Ian. Where does the traveler's letter find its way? She would quote, to Luoyang with the returning geese. She wanted him to always remember the way home. When they brought him back, they found the name too common, too light. So Ian became Ethan, a precious gem to be protected and displayed. Caleb's voice cut through the memory. Let him go. Monica turned on him, asking if he wanted her to throw her child out onto the street. Caleb's response was quiet but firm. Can he survive here? He confessed that just before Ian fell, he had managed to grab his hand. But Ian had let go. His recovery was slow. A month later, he was taken back to the family home. The windows of his room were now fitted with steel mesh. The wreckage of the greenhouse had been cleared away, leaving an ugly scar on the lawn. He was confined to a wheelchair, forbidden from going upstairs, and never left alone. After 2 days of Daniel trying to care for him, during which Ian would only cover his ears and close his eyes whenever his father approached, Monica took over. She found him staring out the window, his back to her. She looked at the photos on his wall, a chronicle of his life from 1 to 16. After that, the wall was bare. She found a stack of loose photos at the bottom of his bookshelf. Uncharacteristically, she asked if she could look. He gave a barely perceptible nod. She flipped through them. The smile on his face slowly vanished with each passing year. The last 2 were stained with tears. One was of him at 17, turning away from the camera, clutching an acceptance letter to the university's horticulture program. The other was from his wedding day. As the crowd cheered for them to kiss, a single tear escaped his closed eye and fell onto his clenched fist. After that, there were no more photos. The pictures slipped from her trembling hands, and she fled the room. A few days later, his confinement was quietly lifted. As a nurse wheeled him through the garden, he glanced at the bare patch of earth where the greenhouse had been. It was then he asked, his voice flat, if they had all heard Caleb agree to the divorce. The nurse stammered, unable to answer. He grabbed her arm, insistent. Daniel appeared, trying to soothe him, telling him not to talk nonsense. Who would he find better than Caleb? A chill spread through Ian from the inside out. He let go and apologized. He became silent again. It was Caleb who broke the silence. He came with an invitation to their high school reunion. Ian hadn't been to one in years. Caleb asked him to go, promising that afterward, they would talk properly. He smiled faintly and called him Ian, the way he used to. He agreed. At the door to the private room, he hesitated, a wave of shame washing over him. But before he could retreat, the door swung open and a familiar face broke into a grin. "Ian's here," he yelled into the room. A crowd erupted, lifting him, wheelchair and all, into their midst. Someone ruffled his hair, another squeezed his cheek. He was surrounded by faces he hadn't seen in a decade. Someone shouted at him to speak. He managed a weak grin and said, "Stop shouting at your father." The room exploded with laughter. This was the Ian they knew. He spent the evening catching up, laughing as they stole food from his plate. His old friend, Zoe, took him aside. She asked carefully how he had been. He gave a vague answer, but she understood. She admitted they had all thought he was avoiding them until someone's partner, a nurse, saw him in the hospital. "You got so thin," she said, her eyes welling with sympathy. "We just wanted to see if we could help." He smiled, a genuine smile this time. "You already have. This is the happiest I've been in years." As they were talking, she asked why Caleb wasn't there. "He's your nemesis," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Everyone knew that. She recalled how, in high school, he would grow quiet and withdrawn whenever Caleb was near. Everyone knew. When the party ended, it was Caleb, not a driver, who came to pick him up. On the ride, Caleb asked if he had a good time. Ian answered honestly that he did. The car stopped at a red light. Ian turned to him. "They all knew I didn't like you. That's why they didn't invite you." Caleb nodded, his hands tight on the steering wheel. "I know." He admitted that he had known they were planning it. Ian looked out at the road ahead. He confessed that for all his talk of hating him, he didn't think he truly did. They had grown up together. But somewhere along the line, just the sight of Caleb had become irritating, an inexplicable anger rising in him. It wasn't until his diagnosis that he understood. It was a physiological aversion. After he presented as an Omega and Caleb as an Alpha, and their engagement was announced, his body had begun to see Caleb as a symbol of the cage his parents were building around him. His instincts had screamed at him to get away from the source of his future pain. Caleb finally spoke, his voice thick with regret. So that's what it was. The beginning had been wrong, so everything that followed was wrong. Ian told him not to bite his lip. He thanked him for telling him the truth. For years, Caleb had tormented himself, believing he must have done something terrible to earn such hatred. Knowing he hadn't, in some small way, was a relief. A tear escaped and he quickly wiped it away. He said they were even now. Ian almost smiled. Even Caleb. Caleb started at the old nickname. "You haven't called me that in a long time." "You haven't called me Ian in a long time either," he replied. "I guess that makes us even, too." Instead of taking him home, Caleb pulled into the brightly lit parking garage of the airport. He slumped over the steering wheel, his shoulders shaking. When he looked up, his eyes were red. He told Ian to open the glove compartment. Inside was a folder. It was a divorce agreement already signed by Caleb. And beneath it, a plane ticket for a flight leaving in 30 minutes. A flight to the small coastal town where his grandmother had lived, and where she had left him her house. "You said you had to remember the way home, Ian," Caleb whispered. Ian clutched the documents, laughing and crying at the same time. He protested that his parents would never allow it. Caleb held up his phone. The screen showed a call in progress, 30 minutes long. The contact read Monica. The line was silent. Their silence was their permission. Caleb then confessed one last thing. During Ian's hospitalization, he had gone home to get his clothes and discovered the old security camera footage. He had edited 6 months of tape down to a 1-hour time-lapsed video. While Ian was at the reunion, he had shown it to both sets of parents. They had watched a young man endure a fever alone, watched him descend into self-harm, watched him try to end his own life. After it was over, a haggard Caleb had knelt before Monica and begged for this divorce decree. She had retrieved it from her study, the paper worn and soft, as if handled many times. "I'll delete the footage," Ian said quietly. "I look so ugly." "No," Caleb replied. "You can come back and delete it yourself, if you want to." Ian looked at him, a new, painful realization dawning. "I was just convincing myself I could live with you," he said. "And you give me this. Are you reminding me not to forget what I wanted?" Caleb knew it had always been a one-man crusade for freedom. All he had to do was agree. "I know," he said, his voice breaking, "but I don't want to cage you. If you're not happy, none of us can be." He rambled on, telling him to take care of his wounds, to go to his checkups, that money was arranged, that the housekeeper would be there to help him settle in. "Take care of yourself, Ian." He reached out and touched Ian's face. "Just one question. If we had just grown up normally, you became a painter, you had friends, and I was one of them, would we have had a chance? Could you have liked me?" For a long moment, Ian was silent. Then he gently removed Caleb's hand from his face, opened the car door and walked, with a pronounced limp but unwavering resolve, toward the terminal entrance. He paused once and looked back. Caleb was still standing by the car. They looked at each other across the distance, and then Ian turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Ian reclaimed his name at 27. He opened a small flower shop by the sea and filled his days with painting. On social media, his followers knew him as a gentle soul who painted flowers. His hands still troubled him, episodes of pain and numbness that medication only dulled, but he never complained. Years later, Caleb and their parents went to the town to see him, only to find the shop under new ownership. The new owner recognized them from photos and handed them an envelope Ian had left. Inside was a single picture. It showed the back of Ian's neck, the skin smooth and unblemished where the gland had once been. He was pulling his collar aside, grinning at the camera and making a peace sign. On the back, a short message. "My life isn't perfect, but it's mine. And it's beautiful." On the way home, they stopped at a market and bought a square watermelon. Monica took a bite and declared it wasn't very sweet. Daniel disagreed, saying it was sweet enough. It was Caleb who sighed and said, "But a normal watermelon is sweet on its own. Why force it into a box just to make it look safer?" Caleb fell asleep and woke up 17 years old. He was at his desk, and across from him, Ian was asleep too, his face pressed against a textbook. The phantom pain in Caleb's arm told him it wasn't just a dream. This was a world with no second gender. When Ian woke up, he grumbled and demanded fruit. Caleb smiled. "It's always Caleb when you want something." Ian just grinned slyly. As Caleb got up to leave the room, he saw that the door opened not into a hallway, but into a formless white void. He understood. This was a memory, a ghost of a life. He looked back. Ian was lounging on his bed, his notes for art school applications scattered nearby. He was completely at ease. "Are you happy, Ian?" Caleb asked quietly. Ian looked at him, confused. "What kind of question is that?" "I won't be happy until you get me some fruit." That was the answer. In the clarity of the dream, Caleb finally understood. He stepped through the doorway, into the void, and woke up in his quiet, empty room. It was the 10th year since Ian had left. The two families rarely gathered anymore. Monica was often lost in thought, holding a stack of old photographs. Daniel, plagued by insomnia, would sometimes sit in the small, dark storeroom, finally understanding where his son's fear had come from. Caleb simply told them all that Ian should have left sooner. He had trapped him for a decade, and then exposed his deepest pain to them all. He owed him his freedom. It was the least he could do. And so the days passed, in the quiet aftermath of a love that was never meant to be.